She slid the ring off her finger, dropped it into that little leather keychain pouch, and walked out the door without so much as a glance back at me. And in that single second, watching the door click shut, I felt the floor of my whole life tilt sideways. Because the last time a woman I loved took off her ring like that, she was already 3 months into an affair I didn't know about yet. Let me back up. I need you to understand who I was before any of this, because the man I was made every part of this story worse than it had to be. I grew up in a household where the words, "trust your gut," were never spoken. Because in my family, you weren't supposed to have a gut. You were supposed to have faith, and faith meant you didn't ask questions. We went to church 4 times a week. My father read scripture at the dinner table before anyone was allowed to lift a fork. I was the oldest of 5, and I left home at 17 with a duffel bag and $91 because I couldn't breathe inside those walls another day. I taught myself everything. How to cook, how to file taxes, how to talk to people whose lives didn't revolve around the same 40 Bible verses I'd had drilled into me since I could walk. I built myself from scratch, and I built myself careful. Suspicious even. The world had taught me that the people who smile widest are usually the ones holding the knife. Then came my daughter's mother. I'm not going to dress it up. I married young, married fast, married a woman I thought was as starved for stability as I was. Her name doesn't matter anymore. I'll call her Dana, because that's close enough and far enough. Dana cheated on me for the better part of the year before I found out, and the way I found out was almost comically small. A second phone, a cheap little prepaid thing taped to the underside of a dresser drawer, the kind of hiding spot that tells you a person has been hiding for so long they've stopped being clever about it. I remember sitting on the bedroom floor with that phone in my hand, scrolling through messages that read like a stranger's diary, and feeling something inside me go quiet and cold and permanent. What came after was worse than the cheating. Dana filed for an obscene amount of child support. Numbers that didn't make sense, numbers that would have left me eating ramen in a studio apartment for a decade. And the moment the court granted it, she essentially vanished from our daughter's life. Handed her over, took the money and the freedom, and disappeared into a new relationship 2 states away. My little girl, Lily, was 3 years old, asking me where mommy went, and I had no answer that a 3-year-old could hold. I've spent the years since then in and out of courtrooms trying to legally correct the whole arrangement, and I'm still not done. So that's the soil all of this grew in. A man who left a cult-shaped childhood, married a liar, lost years of his life and a chunk of his savings, and walked away convinced that love was a thing you survived rather than a thing you enjoyed. And then I met Maya. Maya is the most alive person I have ever stood next to. I met her almost 4 years ago at a friend's backyard barbecue. The kind of event I only went to because I'd promised, and I hate breaking promises. I was standing by the fence nursing a single beer, doing my classic move where I make myself geographically inconvenient so people won't try to talk to me, and she came barreling over with 2 plates of food and announced, "You look like you were going to leave, and I decided I wasn't going to let you." She was 23 then. Locks pulled up in this elaborate twist with little gold cuffs in them, a sundress the color cotton candy, and a laugh that made 3 other conversations stop just to look at where it came from. I am genuinely not the kind of man women like that walk up to. I am quiet. I am watchfed. I describe myself as comfortable in a corner. But Maya treated my quiet like a puzzle she wanted to solve rather than a wall she wanted to climb. By the end of the night, she had my number, and by the end of the month, I'd done more new things. Rock climbing, a 2 a.m. taco truck across town, an open mic poetry night where I almost passed out from social anxiety, than I'd done in the previous 5 years combined. Here's the contrast that matters, and it matters more than I understood at the time. Maya grew up the opposite of me. She grew up well off, cushioned, adored. Her parents still help her. They co-signed her car. They cover things. She has a softness to her relationship with money and risk that comes from never once having the ground disappear beneath her. She joins the kids on the trampoline at trampoline parks. She owns more glitter than any adult I've ever met. She picks the pink option, the sparkly option, the option with a unicorn on it, unironically at 30 years distance from being a child. And I left home at 17 with $91. I have buried a marriage. I have sat in family court so many times the bailiff knows my coffee order. I have raised a daughter mostly alone. We are, on paper, a strange pair. 6 years apart, but more than that, generations apart in experience. What I didn't realize was that the gap I found charming. She sometimes found terrifying. Maya was incredible with Lily. That's the part one need you to hold on to, because it's the part that made the suspicion feel like a betrayal of something sacred. I have majority custody of my daughter, which means Maya wasn't a weekend visitor in Lily's life. She was a daily presence. She did the school drop-offs when I had early shifts. She learned how to do Lily's hair, sat for 2 hours one Sunday with a YouTube tutorial open, ruining 4 attempts before she got a single braid right. And when she finally got it, she cried, actually cried, and so did I. She is the one who instituted Fancy Friday, where the 3 of us dress up in absurd outfits and eat dinner with the good plates for no reason at all. My daughter calls her by her name, but the way she says it, you'd think it was another word for mother. So when I tell you that the thing with the ring kept me up at night, understand that it wasn't jealousy in the cheap sense. It was the specific terror of a man who had finally let himself believe he'd been handed something good, lying awake waiting for the universe to repossess it. The ring. Let me tell you about the ring. I'd saved for it for 2 years. It wasn't a Hollywood rock, but it was real, and it was beautiful, and it had cost me more than I'd ever spent on a single object in my life. When I proposed, at the trampoline park of all places, because that's where she's most herself, she screamed so loud an employee came over to check on us. She wore that ring like it was a part of her hand. To the grocery store, to the gym, to sleep, some nights, until I teased her about scratching me. Except when she went out with her friends. The first time I noticed, I told myself it was nothing. Bar crawl, lots of drinking. She didn't want to lose it. That's the explanation she gave, and it's a reasonable explanation. But then it became a pattern. Club nights, party nights, the big loud social events that were her natural habitat. Off came the ring, into the little keychain pouch, and out the door, she went barehanded. And the thing that gnawed at me, the splinter I couldn't pull out, was the gym. Because at the gym, she did exactly the thing she claimed she couldn't do at the club. She took the ring off so it wouldn't get damaged, slid it into that same pouch, and clipped the pouch to her gym bag. Safe. Tracked. Returned to her finger the second she walked out. So why not just do that at the club? I sat with that question for weeks. I'd watch her get ready, watch her stand at the mirror doing her makeup with that focused little frown, and I'd watch the moment her eyes flicked down her own hand and the ring came off, and I'd feel something acid crawl up my throat. I never said anything in those moments. I'm a corner stander, remember. I file things away. I build a case in silence, the way I learned to build everything in silence. And then there was the phone. I come over to where she was sitting, couch, bed, kitchen island, didn't matter, and the moment I got within reading distance, her thumb would flick up and whatever was on the screen would vanish. Swiped away, replaced with a home screen or a meme she'd suddenly want to show me, all bright and breezy. Look at this, isn't this so funny? Steering my eyes anywhere but where they'd been heading. She wasn't a phone guarder in the obvious sense. She left it face up on the table. She gave me her passcode without me even asking. Years ago, she'd hand it to me to read texts, change the music, whatever. It wasn't locked away. But there was this one specific behavior, the swipe, the redirect, the nervous bright laugh, and it happened over and over, and once I'd seen I couldn't unsee it. The thing that finally cracked me open was my brother. Marcus came by last weekend. He's 2 years younger than me. The only sibling I'm still close with, the only one who also got out of the house and into something resembling a normal life. He was sitting at my kitchen table nursing a beer when Maya came through getting ready to leave. Heels in one hand, that pink jacket she loves, locks done up with little butterfly clips, and she kissed me goodbye, kissed Lily on the head, and slid the ring off into the pouch right there in front of both of us before heading out the door. Marcus watched the door close. Then he turned to me, real slow, and said, "She doesn't wear her ring when she goes out. She doesn't want to lose it," I said. The explanation came out of my mouth automatically, the way scripture used to. It's expensive. She doesn't want to lose it at the club. My brother gave me a long look. The kind of look that has a whole sentence behind it before any words come out. "Man," he said, "that's not normal. You know that's not normal, right? A woman who's proud to be engaged wears the ring. Especially out. especially where there's other guys around. He took a sip of his beer. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying. The most devastating sentence in the English language, because it plants a flag and then walks away and leaves you standing there alone with it. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark next to her empty side of the bed, and I ran the tape. The ring, the phone, the hugging guys she knew, the bar crawls I was invited to but rarely went on because I'm not a club person and she knew it and stopped pushing. Every reasonable thing, lined up next to every reasonable thing, suddenly looked like a pattern. Looked like Dana. Looked like a prepaid phone taped under a drawer. If you've ever been cheated on, you know the specific poison of it. The way it doesn't just hurt you in the present, it reaches backward in time and infects every good memory you have, makes you wonder if any of it was ever real. That poison was in my blood, and Maya, who'd done nothing I could actually prove, was about to pay the price for a woman she'd never even met. I told a few trusted people what was going on, laid it all out, every detail, asked the question I kept asking myself. Am I being naive, or am I being a fool? Am I too trusting because of how I grew up, or am I about to torch the best thing in my life because the last thing in my life burned me? The advice came back mixed, but one piece cut through everything. Someone said, don't accuse her, don't confront her with theories, don't search for evidence in the dark like a coward. Go see for yourself. Show up where she is, unannounced, and watch how she behaves when she doesn't know you're watching. People can lie with their mouths all day. It's harder to lie with your whole body when you don't know there's an audience. What would you have done in this situation? Because I'll be honest with you, I went back and forth for hours, and a part of me is still not sure showing up unannounced was the right move, but I'll tell you what I told myself. I'd rather know the truth and lose her than keep her on a foundation of doubt. Let me know in the comments what you'd have done. So the next night, when she told me she was heading out with her girls, I waited. She'd given me the name of the place. She always did. She was never secretive about where she was going, which even then I noted as a strange thing for a cheater to do. But she also had a habit of bouncing around. One bar, then another, then somebody's after party, then a third place none of them had planned on. So a flat address wouldn't cut it. We share our locations on the Maps app. Her idea, years ago, so you never have to worry, she'd said, and the irony of that wasn't lost on me as I sat in my car in the dark, watching her little blue drift from the bar she'd named to a club 2 blocks over. I'm not going to pretend I felt good about it. I sat in my parked car outside that club feeling like the world's worst person, like a stalker, like exactly the kind of paranoid, controlling man I'd sworn I'd never become. My hands were sweating on the wheel. My heart was going like I'd run there. I almost turned around twice. But Marcus's voice was in my head. That's not normal. You know that's not normal. And so was Dana's, the cold smile she gave me in the courtroom, and I got out of the car. The bouncer barely looked at me. Inside it was loud and dark and exactly the kind of environment I avoid like a fire. Strobing lights, bass I could feel in my sternum, a crush of bodies that made my skin crawl. I found a spot near a pillar at the edge of the dance floor where I could see without being seen, and I found her almost immediately because Maya is the kind of person you find immediately in any room. She glows. She's always at the center of whatever's happening, and she was at the center of it, surrounded by her girlfriends, the 3 or 4 of them I recognized, plus a cluster of guys. My stomach dropped through the floor. There she was talking to 2 men I didn't know, laughing at something, and then she hugged one of them, then the other. My whole body went rigid. This is it, I thought. This is the moment my life ends again. I had 1 foot already in the grave of my own story, ready to bury everything. But I made myself stay still, made myself watch, because the advice had been to watch how she behaves, and 1 hug is not a sentence. It's a single frame, and I owed her, and myself, the whole reel. So I watched, and here's what I saw. I saw a woman who hugs everyone. I saw her hug the bartender. I saw her hug a girl who came in late, jumping up and down with her. I saw her squeeze a guy's shoulder while clearly, animatedly, telling some story with her hands flying everywhere. The way she tells me stories, the same exact gestures. The hugs weren't lingering. They weren't furtive. They were the open, loud, generous physical affection of a person who has never once in her life been taught to be afraid of other people. The thing I'd built into evidence was just her. Just Maya being Maya in her natural element, the element where I'd rarely seen her because I'm the man who stands by the fence. Then a song came on, one of those songs where the whole floor starts grinding and my heart climbed back into my throat. Here we go, I thought. She danced on her friends. The girls formed their little circle and she danced with them, on them, all of them laughing. At one point, a guy crept up behind her and started jokingly grinding on her, and Maya, without missing a beat, spun around and pretended to be the aggressor, hamming it up, doing this exaggerated comedic version of the move back at him until the whole group was doubled over laughing. It was a bit, a joke, the kind of goofy, theatrical, 10-year-old at heart thing she does constantly. The guy backed off laughing, hands up, and that was the end of it. I stood there by my pillar and felt the case I'd spent weeks building start to come apart in my hands. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button. We post news stories every day, and trust me, the ending of this one is not where I thought it was going. After a few more songs, I couldn't stand on the sidelines anymore. I åkte over. The moment she saw me, she screamed. Not a startled scream, a delighted one. The same scream from the trampoline park, the same scream from the proposal. She threw both arms around my neck and yelled my name and immediately started dragging me around by the hand. This is him. This is my fiancé. Babe, this is everyone, this is him. She was beaming, drunk and glowing, and so obviously, uncomplicatedly happy to see me that I felt like the lowest creature on earth for the thoughts I'd been carrying. And then one of the guys she'd hugged, one of the two I'd built into villains in my head, grinned and stuck out his hand and said, "Oh, so this is the famous fiancé. She does not shut up about you, man. Good to finally meet you. The famous fiancé." I'm clearly not a secret. I'm the opposite of a secret. I'm a recurring character in her stories to people I've never even met. The men I'd cast as her affair partners knew me by reputation as the man she wouldn't stop talking about. I stood in that loud, dark club holding my fiancé's hand while a stranger told me how much she loved me, and I felt my whole chest cave in with shame and relief at the same time. The night ended well. She and her girlfriend were thoroughly drunk by then, sloppy, giggling, leaning on each other drunk, and I did what I always do, the thing the corner stander is actually good for. I took care of everyone. Got them all water. Found out who needed a ride. Stopped and got a mountain of late-night food because drunk people need grease and salt, and watched Maya eat fries off my plate and her own plate and one of her friends' plates while telling me a story about a dog she'd seen earlier that I couldn't follow at all. I drove the girls home one by one, walked each of them to their doors, and then took my fiancé home. But I still had a question. And drunk people, in my experience, are the most honest people on earth. So when we got back to our place, when it was just the two of us and she was flopped sideways on the couch with her heels somewhere in the entryway and her makeup half wiped off, I sat down next to her and I asked her, not about the ring. I'd already, in the span of one night, watched my ring theory dissolve. I asked about the other thing, the thing that had been quietly eating me for just as long. "Hey," I said, "can I ask you something? And I need you to be real with me." Her eyes were half closed, a little smile on her face. "Why do you keep hiding your phone when I come around?" Her eyes opened. "I don't hide my phone." "You do," I said, and I described it. The swipe, the flick of the thumb, the sudden meme, the redirect, the bright, nervous laugh. Every time, for weeks, you swipe away from something the second I can see your screen. And here's where the whole thing turned, where the story I thought I was in revealed itself to be a completely different story. Her face did something complicated. She made a little wince, then a smile, but it was an embarrassed smile, a caught smile, and a flush crept up her neck. She covered her face with both hands and groaned. "Oh my God," she said into her palms. "Do you really want to know? Do you really, really want to know?" My heart was pounding. This was it. Whatever it was, here it came. "Yes," I said. "I really want to know." She dropped her hands, and then she started laughing. Not a nervous little laugh. A full body, eyes watering, can't catch her breath laugh. The kind that's so unguarded it's almost impossible to fake. She laughed so hard she fell over sideways into my lap. And through it, gasping, she finally got it out. It's a game, she said. It's this stupid game. It's like a book, but it's animated, and you choose what the characters do and where the story goes. It's called Episode. There's like a million of these dramatic little stories, and you make choices and dress up the characters, and oh my God, they are so cringe. They are so cringe. They're like teen soap operas, and I am obsessed, and I was so embarrassed for you to see. I just stared at her. I play The Sims, she said, wiping her eyes. I play all these games. This is the same thing. It's so juvenile, and the storylines are ridiculous. Like there's one where I'm a werewolf dating a vampire prince, and she dissolved into laughing again. I didn't want you to see me playing teenage werewolf romance games when you've lived an actual life. You left home at 17. You've raised a kid. You've been through a divorce and custody court. And I'm over here choosing whether the werewolf or the vampire takes me to the supernatural prom. And there it was. The whole thing laid bare on the couch at 1 a.m. She kept going, quieter now, the laughing fading into something more vulnerable. Sometimes I feel like a kid next to you, she said. Sometimes I feel like the age gap isn't even about years. It's about you've done so much, you've survived so much, and I've had such an easy life, and my parents still take care of me. And I play dumb teenager games, and I love pink and glitter, and I jump on the trampoline with the kids. And I look at you with everything you've been through, and I get scared that one day you're going to look at me and realize I'm just immature. That you'll think you got engaged to a child. Her voice cracked a little on that last word. So when you come over and see me playing my dumb little story game, I'd panic and swipe away. That's it. That's the whole secret. I was hiding a werewolf romance game from you because I was scared you'd think I was a baby. I have rarely felt so many things collapse into one feeling at once. Because here's what I understood, sitting there with her head in my lap. The exact same gap I'd been romanticizing, her brightness, her childlike joy, the way she'd dragged me out of my corner and into a life with color in it, she'd been quietly fearing. I'd looked at her differences and felt lucky. She'd looked at them and felt small. The contrast that made me love her was the contrast that made her hide her phone. And my own broken history, the suspicion Dana planted in me years ago, had taken her sweet, embarrassing little secret and twisted it, in my mind, into the shape of an affair. The ring, too. I asked her about it later, sober, gently. And the answer was just as small and just as human as the game. She'd lost a ring before, a gift for her grandmother, slipped off in a club bathroom, and gone forever, and she'd cried for a week. At the gym, she's careful, controlled, the pouch clipped to her bag that never leaves her side. But the club, drunk, dancing, hands everywhere, bouncing between venues. That's exactly the chaos that swallowed her grandmother's ring. So off it comes into the pouch, into the zipped inside pocket of her purse. Not to hide that she's engaged. To make absolutely sure she never loses the thing that proves it. I'd taken two completely innocent expressions of who she is. A careful woman who'd been hurt by a loss, and a playful woman who was embarrassed by her own joy, and I'd nearly built them into a betrayal that would have ended us. Drop a comment below. Do you think I made the right call going down there to watch her instead of just asking? Because I genuinely don't know if I'm proud of that night or ashamed of it. I told her everything. I had to. I sat her up, sobered her with a glass of water and the seriousness on my face, and I confessed the whole thing. Marcus's comment, the weeks of suspicion, the people I'd asked for advice, and yes, the part where I drove to the club and stood behind a pillar and watched her like a stranger before coming over. I braced for her to be hurt, to be furious, to feel surveilled and betrayed in her own right. She was quiet for a long moment, and then she took my hand, the one I'd put a ring on, and she said something I'm not going to forget. I'm not mad you came, she said. I'm sad you felt like you had to. That sentence did more damage and more healing than anything else that night. Because she was right. The tragedy wasn't that I doubted her. The tragedy was that I'd been so thoroughly trained by an old wound that doubt was my native language, and she'd been living next to that without fully knowing it. I'd brought Dana's prepaid phone into our bed without ever telling Maya it was there. We talked until the sun came up. About Dana. About the $91 and the duffel bag. about my father and the 4 times a week church, and what it does to a person to grow up being told their instincts are sin. About her parents, her easy life, the specific guilt of having never struggled, and the specific fear that the person you love will hold your softness against you. We talked about Lily, and about how the woman I'd nearly accused of betrayal was the same woman who'd cried over a successful braid. We talked about the age gap not as a problem, but as a thing we'd both been quietly afraid of from opposite directions. In the end, I learned the secret she'd been hiding, and it was a werewolf dating a vampire prince. I think about that a lot now. About how close I came. About how my brother, who meant well, dropped a single sentence into my kitchen. That's not normal. And how I let that sentence reorganize weeks of small, innocent moments into a conspiracy. About how the most dangerous lies aren't the ones other people tell us. They're the stories we tell ourselves, built out of old pain, that feel exactly like the truth. Maya wears her ring everywhere now, except the gym and the club. And I don't think about it anymore, because I finally understand it the way you understand a person instead of the way you investigate one. And on the nights she's curled up next to me on the couch, glowing with the light of her phone screen, I don't crane my neck to see what she's doing. I already know. She's 7 choices deep in some ridiculous animated drama, deciding whether the werewolf or the vampire gets the girl, and every so often she'll turn the screen to me and say, "Babe, look how cringe this is," and I'll look and I'll mean it when I tell her I love that she loves it. The thing I almost destroyed wasn't a relationship with a cheater. It was a relationship with the one person who'd ever made me feel safe enough to lower my guard. And I nearly used that lower guard as the very reason to run. The wound Dana left didn't make me smarter. It made me see knives in every open hand. And the work, the real work, the work I'm still doing, is learning the difference between a person who is hiding an affair and a person who is just quietly a little embarrassed to be exactly who she is. They can look the same in the dark, but only one of them screams your name across a crowded room and calls you the famous fiancé. Only one of them takes off her ring, so she'll never, ever lose the proof that she chose you. I chose to trust her. Late clumsily, after nearly blowing it all up, but I chose it. And it turned out to be the easiest, truest choice I've ever made. Guys, we are inching toward 1,000 subscribers on this channel. If you're not subscribed, please consider hitting subscribe. It really helps us hit that 1,000 milestone. Thanks for sticking around.